Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's live demonstration, CyberSaint's Executive Dashboard. My name is Ethan Bresnahan. I'm the Marketing Director here at CyberSaint, and today I'm very excited to welcome CyberSaint Chief Product Officer, Patrick O'Reilly, and our VP of Engineering, Scott Shaflovsky. We're so glad that you can join us. Feel free to submit questions throughout the discussion as well as the demonstration. And with that, we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome, Patty and Scott. I'm glad to have you both back.
Good to be here, Ethan. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
So I know we're all very excited here at CyberSaint about this new executive dashboard that we released over the weekend, and wanted to don't want to kick things off on the wrong foot, but Patrick, to ask you kind of a pointed question, another dashboard. So just to get things started, why this dashboard? What's unique about this one in particular?
Yeah,
kind of why?
Absolutely. Yeah, why? Well, this is not just another dashboard anyhow. And, I'll endeavor to explain why. And why the dashboard? Well, the simple answer is customers and large system integrators were asking us for it. Another component of that simple answer is, regulatory bodies are asking, what do you have in place for cyber risk management with respect to your board, with respect to your C-suite? A lot of our largest customers are also sort of asking us, okay, great, we have all this data in system. How do we visualize it in a way that we can tell the story around cyber risk management? So we brought a lot of different participants to the table on this, and we tried to answer the why by building this.
So what have you seen as far as especially as the name might suggest, the executive dashboard is primarily designed for that sort of board CEO level reporting on cybersecurity and cyber risk posture.
Right.
With that in mind, what were some of kind of the pain points? Obviously, there's an infinite number of dashboards on the market in various products across the market right now.
Sure.
What were some of the pain points that these market stakeholders, system integrators, customers, et cetera, what were they saying to you as far as the shortcomings when it came to this particular need? And we'll get to kind of why that need became so urgent recently in a second. But what were some of the pain points and the shortcomings of what already existed?
Well, the main pain point and shortcoming is that a lot of the metrics that were driven around the issue of cyber risk management were static point-in-time analyses that landed in PowerPoint or came out of some beast of an Excel sheet with macros and lines of VBA parked in it, that even if you got to present, was stale pretty much the moment you walked out the door.
Right.
A lot of the data that was, parked on some of these analyses was static data. Sometimes, we've talked to very, very large companies that do risk management, and they've told us that, sometimes we pull data that's months old and park it on analyses such as these, which is really not ideal in risk management. So I think, most of the people who work in cyber risk management know that the objective over the long term has been to get the highest quality data into metrics that can be understood and socialized among those who make business decisions.
Right. So especially with that in mind, this shift, and to kind of summarize and correct me if I'm wrong here, but especially kind of this dashboard, the cybersecurity dashboard for non-cyber folks.
Or for folks who have some measure of responsibility for risk management, and one component of it is cyber.
Right.
And they may not have specific expertise in cyber. So we want to be speaking in terms that professionals such as those can understand, which
in risk terms, maybe potentially less cyber specific terms, but putting it in a risk context.
Precisely.
With that, so we've kind of covering the why, but getting into kind of the why now. What were kind of some of the primary forces, especially with getting this out as fast as we did?
Again, sort of threefold, and then sort of there's a vision part. The threefold part is our customers. Our customers are asking us for this, really, in one form or another, right? So we have to kind of superimpose all the requests and see what those requests share in common, and then mock something up, go to them and say, is this sort of what you're thinking? And then the large delivery organizations, this is something they've been chasing after for a long time. They've been presenting data on this for a very long time. They have established methodologies and metrics that they roll into reports that they can show to the C-suite or the board. So we drew from that as well. They want to get out of spreadsheets as well. A lot of these practices have been delivering on the backs of spreadsheets that are very ungainly, both for the teams that are using them and for the actual clients themselves. When they get the product in hand, they're sort of like, well, what do we do with this now? We can't necessarily show this at the level of the board every time. We need something visually more appealing, something that is, being informed by data in real time. And that was really it. And the vision part is basically that this has been a goal all along in cyber risk management. I think it's well understood that it's a goal. You want to be able to rationalize your risk program in light of what's going on across your stack. And you want to be able to make cost-informed decisions as a consequence as to how you buy down or remediate that risk. And you want that to have an audit trail. You want it to be visible. You want it to be reportable, because that is a demonstrable way that you're handling cyber risk management, which is, again, the third component, which is increased regulatory pressure. I mean, the SEC has effectively said to private equity and other publicly held companies that they have to have some program in place at the board or in the C-suite as well, with respect to how you practice cyber risk management. This dashboard is an answer to that. This is how we look at it. This is what we do, and this is how we perform our analysis, and this is how we propose to handle these risks.
Right. So thank you for that. Turning now to you, Scott, especially as VP of Engineering, I can, from all of this, collecting all of this information for all the conversations that Patrick's had along the way, we have some unique approaches here at CyberSaint when it comes to whether that's flexibility of risk models, whether it's allowing organizations to use 830 FAIR and cyber insight across their organization, leveraging a massive new data set, which we'll get into, the risk benchmarking that is powered by the Advisen data set. And lastly, just the being able to make sure that this dashboard is usable for customers of all sizes, whether that's a commercial enterprise or whether that's a Fortune 50 company. Can you tell us a little bit about the process of the process of building this dashboard and how you thought about it to kind of meet some of the needs that Patrick just discussed as far as some of the customers and stakeholders that we've spoken with?
Yeah, I think you sort of hit it with the flexibility of the platform. So it's sort of a blessing and a curse that we support frameworks that range from just a standard NIST scoring that's going from 0 to 100 to customized score models that are going 0 to 5. CMMC, which is more of a subtractive score model that starts at 110 and works its way down. So how do we display that information in a way that is going to be effective to the executives that are looking at this dashboard, and make that quickly recognizable for the users, but also sort of normalize that data so that you can make those quick comparisons. And again, just going back to some of the risk models, we have that same challenge with all the different risk models with different fields. 830 risks are very different from a fair risk, and how that the inputs are entered there, and kind of the outputs that we get from those different risk models. So trying to come at it with an approach to make it configurable, but still easily comparable for all the frameworks and risks across the board.
Right, quite the feat of engineering, and we're very, very excited to dive in. So with that, I would certainly give the folks what they want. Shall we get into a bit of a demonstration here?
Sure. So what I've brought up here is our standard executive dashboard that you would see in the platform now. So the only thing that's configured by default is this bottom widget, which is just your other framework maturity. And you have an option to filter down on this a little bit too. We can go into that in a little bit. What I want to start with is the top industry cyber risks widget here. So right now it starts as empty, but if you click to enter your industry data, we have a whole list of different industries available to pick from. So for this example, let's go down to manufacturing. Once you select a specific industry, we'll give you different revenue ranges for buckets of events that we're going to pull from that data set that Ethan was referencing earlier. So in this case, let's do 1 billion. And then based off of that revenue range, we'll also give you buckets of different company sizes for that range. So in this case, for example, we'll just do 2,500 to 63,000. So once you've entered that data, you'll get a pie chart here with some values on the right. So this is showing you the number of events that we've seen based off of the inputs configured. So for the manufacturing sector with that specific revenue and company size ranges, these are some of the historical data that you can reference as you're thinking about risks going forward. So here we can see that ransomware in the manufacturing sector was the top. Some of these won't have average losses. In that case, the data set is just missing some of that data. But in most cases, you'll see the average loss for the company based off of that particular event. So the pie chart, if you scroll over, will just show you the exact number of events that are in each category. Again, just as a reference. So really excited about that. Really kind of the first step of looking at the historical risk data, being able to present that, like what does our company need to look forward to or look ahead to in terms of protecting ourselves for risks based off of things that have been happening in our industry. The next widget is your top cybersecurity risks. So in this case, we'll start to see where some of the flexibility comes from. So in platform, we have 3 different risk models. We have our 830, FAIR, and Cyber Insights. So to configure this widget, you'll select one of these. In this case, I'll just select my Cyber Insight risk type. In this environment, I've only populated 2 risks, but if you have a more populated environment, you would have your full kind of risk register here. And then I can choose which risks I want to see on this particular chart. So in this case, I'll just select them all. And we'll see this nice heat map pop up at the top right, which shows our top risks kind of relative to each other. In this case, we only have 2. And we can hover over to see what the current value and our target value for that specific risk is. So if we keep going down on these widgets, now we have more of the maturity of your control frameworks. So in this case, we'll select specific assessments in your environment that you want to see on this dashboard. So again, we can select all of the assessments in our environment if we want to, or we can filter it down by different tags or frameworks, etc. So really trying to provide that customization for each specific use case and company. So here we'll see our historical maturity on the graph on the left. So we can select between a few different options. We have 6 months, 1 year, and if you have been in the platform for 5 years, you also will see the 5-year option to kind of track how we've done on that framework as time has gone by. So here we can see that the overall maturity for our controls has gone down a little bit in December 22, and then we started to go back up a little bit. We show the high performer, so the assessment that's doing the best, and then your sort of low performer, the assessment that's doing the worst, the one you probably want to check on or implement some controls to improve that overall posture. Kind of toggling between those, we can see that we also show the diff next to those high performers. So for this specific assessment of power controls, the score has gone up by 50 points since February 2022. And then this low performer, you can see in this specific instance, there's been no change since February 2022. So trying to allow users to track not only their current control posture, but that control posture as it changes over time to give them kind of that glimpse into how things have either progressed or regressed through the years or months. The last sort of widget here at the bottom is just being able to configure for different frameworks. So here in this environment, we have CMMC, we have NIST CSF, and we have power controls. So those are the frameworks that we could select. If we had more, we have the option to select 3 that will populate on this specific widget. And then if we wanted to see how they're all doing, we could view all of them in an expanded panel. This rolls up all of the assessments under those frameworks, and it uses the score that is relative to that framework. So in this case, 2.65 means something different to the CMMC framework as opposed to this 32 for the NIST CSF 853. Something to call out as it relates to that is the numbers on your CSF maturity widget are all normalized 0 to 100, so that we can take into account those frameworks like CMMC2 that is more of a subtractive model from 110, and you can easily compare your high performer, low performer assessments without having to try to translate a framework that goes from 0 to 5 and a framework that goes from 0 to 1, or a subtractive model. So trying to make that as quickly comparable. Whereas this widget down here, we want to give you kind of that real view into the framework in the context of that framework. I think that's sort of the whirlwind tour. We have the exports on some of these historical maturity graphics, like the other graphics that we have in platform. And I think I skipped over these 2 labels here, but looking at all of the controls assessed that you've selected, and then your average control gap. So in this case, if it's the control has been touched at all in terms of setting the compliance score, or it's in progress, etc., we'll count that as a control that's being assessed. So you can see that in this environment, there's still quite a bit that need to be worked through. And then based off of those controls assessed, we had an average gap of 0.02, which isn't all that bad. So we can kind of gauge our how we're doing overall based off of that particular control gap. Patty, did I miss anything or anything you want to add context to?
No, you did a great job there, Scott. I would just add context to 2 of the graphics. The CSF maturity, we have a real opportunity there. We have some additional data we can use to enrich it, and that's part of our next rounds of builds from some of our partners that will show maturity in your sector or your vertical, and so you'll be able to benchmark sort of how you're doing in your overall, and see how you're doing compared to either competitors or other companies in your vertical. So we'll have, in essence, a kind of double benchmarking here. We'll have the actual events that occur on the upper left benchmarked in a sense, and you can then have the conversation around, how is our risk management program aligned to what we've seen, empirically on the left. And then you can drill down into how you're doing with respect to maturity, which is, on the CSF, which is widely accepted and understood, and a way to talk about, how you're doing at the actual level of your practice with respect to cybersecurity. And, the future on this really is that the controls are to some extent automated. So the data is updating in real time daily. So you can understand, whether you're, trending up or trending down on a daily basis. These reports have historically, been mired and sort of like time warps, and that, often executives are looking at data that's 3 months old or older. This is going to be live and in real time, which is a way, a much better way to practice risk management, and all risk management professionals know as much. So that's some additional context. Thank you.
Well, thank you both, Patty and Scott. Something I think that jumps out at me with, especially when we have a big release like this, but especially this dashboard in particular, the word that jumps out at me is intentionality. That especially with the way that this was built and with the key points that Patrick brought up when we first started this conversation in mind, just the elegance with the way that this is put together, and some frankly new and very exciting components in here as far as industry benchmarking, and being able to kind of put that into both the CSF context and fold in that regulatory component in that last bit. So we have actually gotten a slew of questions, but any kind of round out thoughts here from just the demo portion from either of you before we get into some specialized questions here?
Nothing from me.
Nope.
Cool. Let's start with, I think probably the easiest one to start with is where's the data? I think this person might have hopped on late, but would you mind just in couple sentences, where's the data coming from the dashboard?
A few different places. So the data on the upper left graphic is coming from a 1 million row database of cyber events, historical cyber events collected by Advisen and Zywave. It's one of the most robust data sets out there on cyber loss data. The data on the right, your top cybersecurity risks, are actually coming out of your risk practice in platform. So it's how you've benchmarked your risks. It could be scenario analysis, it could be qualitative, or it could be based in a probabilistic model like FAIR. So that's actually coming from your own internal program. The CSF maturity data is coming from, as Scott demonstrated, your actual assessments live and in system. We map every framework to the CSF. So it could be coming, as Scott indicated, out of CMMC. It could be coming out of Rev 5 or Rev 4 of 853. It could be coming from ISO. It could be coming from PCI. Those all have known mappings into the CSF. The CSF is kind of, the lingua franca of the practice of cyber, and it's widely accepted, in the system integrators and in many understood widely in many boardrooms and C-suites. It's just a really good way to talk about the practice of cyber without diving too deep into the granularity of any particular regulatory framework. The data on the bottom is also coming from your own practice and assessments in system as well, across multiple frameworks. We've got about 100 publicly available and hundreds of privately constructed frameworks as well, and that's configurable.
Great. And I don't know, well, just, yeah. I think we have a couple questions in here that I think might be better suited for a individualized discussion, but I think this might just be a one-off question for a trivia question for both of you. Okay. Is ISO 27002 in the product currently?
Yes.
There you go. And then other question, in terms of the NIST section, the NIST CSF maturity section, can the dashboard drill down to show each domain? And if not, is that something that we are thinking about?
We do that on the individual risk models. We drill down into the framework functions and into the categories and subcategories on the individual risk dashboards. On the executive dashboard, we're sort of scoping out whether or not, how deep we should drill, for conversations with executives. Certainly not much of an effort because we've already done it over on the other risk dashboards to drill down into the actual framework functions, for example, or the categories. Yep.
Gotcha.
Yep. And Scott's showing it here. So.
Perfect. Well, especially with some of these more detailed questions as far as custom metrics and kind of our own sort of security protocols, I would highly recommend anyone who's that interested in learning more about CyberSaint, feel free to reach out if you haven't already, info@cybersaint.io, or visit us at cybersaint.io. And we'd love to have a more custom tailored conversation with you as far as kind of what you're looking for and what your needs are for your program. Patty, Scott, any parting thoughts here as we start to wrap up and wait for any last questions to trickle in?
Nope, just really excited to be able to show off this functionality. I want to thank you, Ethan, and thank you, Scott, for helping us to present this. And we're really excited for this to go live and hear what our customers and prospects are saying.
Very much so. Very much so. Congratulations to you both. It's a very, very exciting release. So for anyone watching, definitely reach out. We'd love to show this to you live. And Scott, Patrick, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Ethan. Take care, everyone.
We'll talk to you soon.
Bye now.